Hi, I'm Kathryn Tse-Durham. Merry Christmas! It's so good to be here today. I would just like to share that my new book is out, the third book of the Ellanor Chronicles, Ellanor and the Land of the Midnight Sun. And I'm really happy that my friend Aaron Presley is here to co-host this with me today. So Aaron is a friend and also a reader of my books, and I'm really flattered that that he's been enjoying my books as well. So that's one of the reasons why he's here with me today. And so Aaron has been in Hong Kong for 17 years, right?
Yeah.
Originally from America, Minnesota.
Minnesota,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So we got to know each other through a mutual friend, Dr. Sam. Hi, Dr. Sam. Yeah. So we're just going to be talking about the new book and just the series overall, and just really excited, to be doing this at the end of this crazy year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Aaron, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Good.
Good.
We just moved, so it's been a crazy week of packing, but yeah, everything's set.
So you're excited to have your book on the shelves now. I've seen it around in the city. So.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of surreal. I remember when I first saw my books at the bookshop, I was just, wow. I was on cloud 9, that's the dream, right? Every author's dream. So yeah, now this third book is finally out after, how long? Years. Yeah.
Did it come about longer than your other two, or about the same, or?
Well, my first 2 books were actually published a few years ago, and then my current publisher, Hedgehog Publishing, discovered me they actually discovered me in 2015 at the book fair when I was pregnant with my first, and now I'm pregnant with my second. And so they contacted me last year, and the rest is history. So these are the new editions of the series. Beautiful new editions, thank you. And this is the new book. Yeah. So as you can see, it's based in a very cold place. Yeah.
So how, you said your current publisher discovered you, and you had self-published your first or your first 2?
First 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a big leap
It was
of faith
huge
for you to...
Oh, it was crazy. I remember when I was at the book fair, I was the only independent author there with my own booth selling 2 books. And when I met Jay, he said that he was impressed because there I was, this one girl sitting with 2 books, just by myself, and I had the guts to do that. And looking back, I'm like, yeah, I was kind of crazy, but I'm so glad I did it. Otherwise he wouldn't have come across my books. Yeah.
So what made you think about writing a book? Like, some people are just creative types and they say, oh, I'd love to write a book someday, but what kind of drives you to actually do it?
Well, I think it was 2012 or 13. I mean, I've always loved books, it was kind of my childhood dream, to actually write and have my books published, and so after I got married, and in 2013, I decided, okay, I'm going to get this done before I start a family, because once you start a family, well, everything's different, right? So, and at first, actually, my idea for Ellanor was more, it was going to be more of a, like a children's book. Like, it was more like a short story almost, but then it kind of morphed.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that happened to Tolkien as well. So when Tolkien started The Lord of the Rings, I think he wrote The Hobbit, and then it just morphed into this epic, this wonderful epic. Yeah, Tolkien, I love Tolkien. So he, actually his book, you know, The Lord of the Rings, really inspired this series for me. Yeah, the elves. Yeah.
And so you love sharing a good story. Like that's one of your goals, is to just share a good story, but you're an educator by profession.
Speech therapist.
Speech
yes.
therapist. So does that approach how you come across your writing? Does it have more than just a good story? There's lessons, there's things kind of wrapped up in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a writer, you know, we have things we want to say. We have ideas and morals we want to express. Yeah, and so, but I'm also aware that every reader is different. They will interpret my story differently. So even if I try to convey something, you know, they might either get it or not, or they might have their own take, right? So I guess one of the things I really want to convey through this story of Ellanor is, well, in the story, you know, she starts off as this really innocent, you know, little girl, very insecure, you know, but then she grows up, obviously. It's like a coming of age thing. And then, you know, she faces a lot of challenges along the way, you know, dark forces, you know, sinister things. And I guess one of the things I want to convey is that, yeah, you know, there's a lot of dark stuff in this world, right? There's a lot of bad things, a lot of bad stuff that happens, a lot of darkness and evil, but there is still light. There is goodness, you know, and it's worth fighting for. And another thing I guess I want to convey is I love traveling. You love traveling too?
Yeah.
And don't we miss it?
Very much so.
Yeah, so when I write, you know, my character Ellanor, she travels to all these amazing places, some places I haven't been to. And so through her, I sort of vicariously experience those places. And yes, I do a lot of research for those places, and it gives me a lot of joy, you know, to kind of vicariously experience that sort of thing. Yeah. And so I want to sort of show readers, you know, there's so much out there in the world. You know, young people go out and explore. I mean, you know, all these different cultures and, you know, people from all sorts of backgrounds, you know. I mean, we might look different, you know, we might look different, we might sound different, we speak different languages, but at the end of the day, actually, we're all, you know, kind of the same, right? And I want people, I want my readers to see, you know, if you can just see that, you know, I think we could get along a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's an important thing, especially now, is you know, living vicariously. Like you said, I love traveling, but you just can't do it right now, and so it's kind of it's nice to have something like a good book to allow you to kind of take you somewhere when you can't really do that yourself.
And that's the wonder of fiction, I think, you know, that, you know, and I think everyone needs that. I'm not just talking about books, you know, you could talk, you know, I mean, people love movies, right? Comics, films, and those are stories. Someone wrote those stories, you know, so never underestimate the value of entertainment, because they breathe life into us, right?
Yeah.
So that's really important. I mean, for me, growing up, I mean, books, were so important to me. They sort of saved me in a way, right? And so, I mean, I loved authors like Roald Dahl, okay, and J.R.R. Tolkien, and I'm now looking at my bookshelf, which is, I mean, so many, and how about for you? Which stories, were beloved?
When I grew up, I wasn't much of a reader, actually.
Oh.
I'm a slow reader. I always have been a slow reader. And I think when I was younger, that kind of frustrated me more, because it kind of made me feel like, oh, I'm not reading as fast as I should, or it was just kind of frustrating to spend so much time to get through a book. So actually, when I was a child, I mostly read comics. Garfield was our big thing in our house, so we always read the Garfield comic books. And as I got a bit older, the books that I remember enjoying they were also fantasy. You heard of the author Piers Anthony?
I think so, but I haven't read him.
He wrote a series from the Xanth series, and so things were very much a literal, as you saw them. So there were things like a spelling bee, where it was a bee that was, had to do with words and different things like that. There was a book called Nightmare, and it was an actual mare horse.
Okay.
And so those, right, and so those kind of captured my attention. But I really started getting back into reading when I started reading the Harry Potter series.
Oh, yeah. I love Harry Potter, as you can see on my bookshelf. Yeah, I know, right?
So.
And it's like when you come across books that make you go, oh, I don't want to put it down. That's when magic happens, I think, and I mean, so J.K. Rowling and her books, Harry Potter, they also were an inspiration for me as well. I mean, I remember when the 5th book came out, The Order of the Phoenix. I was in college doing my master's, and I had an exam the next day, but I got the book from the bookstore and just read it overnight, and I felt so bad. The next morning I was like, I'm supposed to be taking this exam, and I did okay, but I think I could have done better. But that's the power of storytelling, it just hooks you in, right? Yeah.
And they were the first books that I actually felt like I was breezing through.
Yeah.
And whether it was the fact that I was so engaged in the story that I didn't want to put it down, or found myself reading it more often than I would other books. They were the books that kind of got me back into reading and kind of living that story vicariously through the books is really just a really enjoyable, sometimes distraction, sometimes just something that you just really enjoy and just want to relax. And
and I think good books, it's not about, I think some people have this impression that a truly good book has to have a lot of big words in it. It's like, no, not necessarily. A good book has to have a good story.
Right.
It has to have those characters that draw you in, right? And I mean, Yeah, so I mean, Harry Potter was so easy to read. You know, it was like you just step into that world and you could identify with the characters. And I guess that's one of the things I really want my readers to do. You know, to be able to identify with Ellanor and the other characters, even though it's like a fantasy, but it's partial fantasy. It's embedded partially in the real world as well. Yeah.
When you do the real world stuff, it's a very sharp contrast. You have Elendria, which is where Ellie is from, and then you have Gaia, which is Earth as we know it. And when you describe the places that she goes in Gaia, they're very accurate.
Thank you. Thank goodness.
I assume so, but they're, you know, the descriptions are very much as if you were reading in a magazine article about that location. Do you try hard? You said you study a lot about research a lot about the places that she goes. Is that important to you to make sure that you're accurate with those things?
Yes, because one of the things I want my readers to learn about is I want them to learn about the places that I write about. So in book 1, Ellanor goes to London, okay? And she comes across like a Chinese family in London. You know, I wanted all of that to feel real, you know? So I talked about, you know, the places that she went to in London, you know, the Big Ben, you know, and like London Eye, you know, that sort of thing. I wanted, you know, the readers to kind of feel, oh, wow, yeah, you know, I can see all of that, you know, it's there, right? It's real. And the second book was based in South Korea. So yeah, I mean, I love South Korea. My husband is Korean, and so writing about that was really fun. Yeah, and the third book, as you know, is based in Finland. I haven't been to Finland yet, and so I really want to go. But now with my second one coming, I don't know when I can travel to such a faraway place again. It'll take a while. Yeah. So definitely researching these places is paramount because I want the readers, you know, to be convinced, you know,
Is it, I suppose it's kind of fun for you to have, you know, you're bound by what is real and you want to make that accurate in one sense, but then in the other you can just let your imagination wander and just create something exactly as you want it to be.
That's also the fun thing. When I created the world of Elendria, you know, I mean, it's just fun to imagine what it would be like. And also, you know, I was inspired by the things that were described in Tolkien's world, you know, Lord of the Rings. He's amazing. He's the master. And so that part was really fun. Yeah. So since you've read, you know, my first 2 books, and you're reading the third book, do you have some favorite characters and some favorite places so far?
It's hard not to like Ellie. I mean, the kind of spunkiness and attitude that she has, but then just this adventurous attitude that, oh, I want to go and explore, and she, you know, that's been established throughout the whole story, was how she wanted to be an explorer, and the idea that, you know, she's small, she's
compared to the other elves.
Yeah,
she's a little bit odd compared to the other elves.
Very different and kind of her look is very different than the elves of Elendria, and so she kind of has to do things to
make up for it.
make up for it, and kind of not fight back necessarily, but to prove that it doesn't matter that she's different. And so seeing her go from that person who wants to be an explorer, and then have her kind of thrust into it without, the proper steps. I think that's fun, and to see how she responds to that. She always wanted to be an explorer, and then when she has to go to these different places due to things that happen around her, how she handles fun. I also like Greymore. I think he's a fun character.
The Royan, the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because, no one would really think that a book could be a character, right? But, but I just thought, oh, how cool would that be if I had a book strapped to my belt who could, talk to me, and help me out of, some tight spots, right? But, So,
Greymore is like she said, it's the book that she carries around with her, and it's this magical book, and they can speak through telepathy.
Yes.
And basically, it's anything that you carry with you, you can stick in this book. A physical thing you can take and stick in this book.
Exactly. No
carry
need for
around
luggage.
with you, and then whenever you need it, you can open your book and you can get it out.
Yeah. And the really cool thing about those books, those Royans, is that they kind of function as computers as well. They store all this data without crashing ever. So I had fun creating that.
Yeah.
That Royan aspect in the story. Yeah. So, well, I'm glad that you like Ellie and Greymore. One of the things about creating a female protagonist is that, I don't know if you know about this, but I've read that, a lot of boys, young male readers, they often are encouraged to read books that feature male heroes, male main characters, right? Because they're kind of raised, brought up to think that, you shouldn't read books about female protagonists because it's too girly. And I don't agree with that, because I'm thinking, well, I love Harry Potter, right? And those books feature male protagonists, right?
Yeah.
So why should boys also be interested in reading stories about female heroes?
Yeah.
I think that's really important. I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to create this series involving a female hero, a female protagonist. I would love, to have boy readers, come up and tell me, oh, wow, I think this is really cool. And I have, they have, I've been approached by boy readers, they really love the books. But then they also don't really want to own up to it sometimes, They might sit, on the train and might be reading my book, but cover it with something because there's a girl on the cover. So one of the things I really would like to see is just more boys being encouraged to read, books about female protagonists, and think that's still cool, and parents should encourage that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also kind of nice that she starts out, the series, she starts out as a 12-year-old.
Yes.
So not only is she female, but she's also young.
Yes.
And I think those two things put together, in today's society, sometimes get equated with weak.
Yeah.
Or unable to achieve.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, I think it's good to put forward that idea that even though you're young, even though you are female, there's no reason you can't do the things that other people do. I mean, I don't remember how long you said in the books that she would typically have to study and go to school and all this stuff in order to be an explorer. And even then, people were saying, oh, you can't do that. But here she is, 12 years old, and she's doing it and doing it well. And I think that's, I mean, if you love people, I mean, elves, but if you love people, I think that's something to cheer and to encourage. And I think it's just wonderful to have those examples, especially for, you know, young girls that need role models.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I read that, you know, J.K. Rowling, one of the reasons you know, she goes by J.K. Rowling was because her first publisher told her, oh, if you use your full name, Joanne, then young boy readers will be deterred from reading your books. And I'm like, are you kidding me? What? But that's reality, right? And so that's one of the reasons why I want to use my full name, Kathryn Tse-Durham, because I think, oh, I'm proud to be a female writer, you know? And why not? You boys should just pick up my book, you know, whether I'm female or male, you know, right? I mean, maybe it's idealistic of me to think that, but that's just, you know, but I understand. I mean, she got published, 20-something years ago, you know, so things were probably a bit different back then, but I just think times are changing, you know, and I also want people to know, you know, that I'm Chinese as well, you know, so I want my full name there, you know, so I'm female and I'm Chinese Australian, you know, but I can write, you know, so I just want to encourage people to think more openly, you know.
I just got to the part where in the third book where Ellie's best friend Aaron, they were in a bit of a tight situation, and Ellie had to do all these different things to help them out. And I remember reading that Aaron was kind of surprised that while she's so much smaller than him, here she is doing all these heroic things to
saving him.
And he kind of felt a little bit
embarrassed.
Right. And I think that's important to point out, that those things can happen. You know, you can be embarrassed, but it's still, you know, it's exciting to see how different people can step up and help their friends.
Yeah, I mean, even in that world of elves, the elf boys have been sort of socialized to think a certain way, right? That the boys should rescue the girls, but not the other way around. Well, why not? You know?
So with the idea of planning, when you started writing these books, I know you originally thought they would be children's books, short stories. When you started writing the novel, did you know it was going to be a series? And if you did know it was going to be a series, did you know how long, you know, how many books you were going to write?
Yeah, I actually planned it all out. I mean, I started this whole process in 2013. So obviously, I mean, as I said, you know, writing is a very fluid process. You have to make way for changes, because I've realized along the way, you know, you need to account for certain plot holes also, and then you have to fill in those plot holes. You change things around a bit, you know, because I want my story to be convincing. Okay, so when this whole process first started, yeah, I planned out the whole series, and it was going to be about 4 to 5 books. So based on how things have gone so far, yeah, it will still be about 4 to 5 books. Yeah. And I have started planning the 4th book. Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny because I've gotten messages from readers already who have finished my book. Okay. Like, you know, young people can read really fast. Maybe they don't really have much else to do or something, but they can afford that time. And, you know, I mean, I've gotten some really nice messages, you know. They said, oh, you know, I love your book, it's awesome. And then, you know, some, you know, teenage girls, you know, they've gotten to like some of the male characters as well. You know, they're like, oh, you know, I hope Ellie ends up with him or something like that. I'm like, yeah, okay. You know, so it's nice to see that, you know, they're that into the story.
Yeah,
you know?
they're invested.
Yeah, they're invested. That's the word, and I want them to be invested. Like I was invested in the Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when you have individual books, do you plan out the whole storyline and then write it, or do you kind of have an idea, start writing it, and then see how you feel where it should go?
I plan out the whole story first. Yeah. So I plan out all the chapters.
Okay.
And then, but then, you know, it sounds like easy, but it's not. It's like, it's just a skeleton, you know, and then along the way there's so much to think about. It's a lot of hard work, but I love it. Yeah. So it's just been a really great journey. Yeah.
How about the characters? Do you have, how much time do you spend with like character development? Do you figure everything out at the beginning and then let that guide them, or is there different things that kind of come up in your books that maybe surprise you, like, oh, I didn't realize they would respond this way, or
that happens sometimes. So as I said, you know, things can be fluid, you know, and yeah, I mean, some of the characters I've planned out to be this way and to respond in a certain way because that's what their personality is like, right? But sometimes they might surprise me. I go, oh, you know what? Maybe I could come up with this twist, you know? And those twists have actually delighted my readers, you know? And in the most recent book, actually, there was this twist, and one of my readers were like, they sent me a very emotional message. And so I was like, oh, that's great. I want that sort of response, you know? You know, that's really good to see. So, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of one of the signs of a good story is if it can make you frustrated at times as well. Or, no, this isn't what I wanted it to be. And,
they were like, what? I can't believe did this, or, you know. Like,
I mean, if you're not invested in it, if you don't really care about the story, you wouldn't have that response.
Yeah.
So I think that's good.
It makes my day when I see readers respond in that way. Yeah. So, yeah. Now I think that, you know, perhaps time is of the essence. So we probably have to wrap up soon. I've really enjoyed chatting, you know. It's like we could have gone on and on, but I realized, wow. Okay. So now we would like to do something kind of fun. Okay. We have 2 riddles here now. If you have read my books, okay, you might know that riddles are kind of a big part of my story. Okay, so now we have these 2 riddles here, Okay, and the first person to answer these riddles correctly would be you get the full set. Okay, the full set of these books. Okay, so the winner will get these books for free as a gift. Okay, so are you ready, Aaron?
Yep.
I have the first riddle here. Okay, the first riddle is, where does success come before work? Where does success come before work? And the second
All
riddle?
right. The second riddle is, what goes up but never comes down? What goes up but never comes down?
So, if you know the answers, you should send your answers to the Facebook Messenger, okay? On Facebook Messenger of the Hedgehog Publishing site, okay? So, it's pretty easy, Hedgehog Publishing. Okay, and yeah, so let's see who will win these books, okay? And just to wrap up, these books can be bought at Bookazine and other bookstores around Hong Kong, such as Commercial Press and Joint Publishing. These books are also available online from the publisher's website, www.hedgehog-publishing.com. Okay, what a mouthful. Okay, and yeah, I mean, so I hope that you will enjoy my latest book. And thank you, Aaron, for being here
Thank you
today.
for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Merry Christmas, guys,
Merry
and
Christmas.
Happy New